Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel.
Okay, I am kind of cobbling together some custom body mounts, and at the same time I'm mounting the body, or at least marking it up to be mounted. So right off the bat, a tuning board can be very helpful because you can line the car up on that nice big center line going down the center of the board, and then you can use the center line in the molding on the car to be able to kind of make sure things are straight. And also, you optically, measure the distance between the body and the wheels, and make sure your spacing is correct and things of that nature. And then you mark your holes. Now, because these are all empty right now, they don't have the little pins. That makes it even easier because I can see right where the grub screw is going to go down into this item, and they're not even connected right now. I've just got them kind of twist tied on. And these are actually it's a Proline body kit for a slash, and I'm taking certain parts of it and attaching it to pieces of a Proline TLR kit, and then also just a general piece of custom body mount that I've cut up, and to make part of that the actual mount here that gives me this this flat section here above the shock tower in the front, that is going to allow me to bolt this slash bracket into place. And likewise in the rear, another slash bracket is sitting on top of a TLR crossbar, which is attached to the shock tower with those spacers. Now, in theory, I could have used that TLR bar all on its own with some of these pieces that are that fit that bar. These are Proline body posts for the TLR kit, which is no longer available. But in any event, the reason I don't want to use these is because of the size, width-wise, and locations of the where these pins are going to come out on this body. For example, if you look right here where this thing would drop into that bar, this is almost a 45-degree angle. Having a metal pin come up through that and a big knob with a mostly flat bottom screw down on top of that, clamping the body when the body's at a 45-degree angle, is going to bend and deform the body. I ideally want a flat surface or close to it. Now, I'll settle for something like this where it's a ridge, where I've got a 45-degree angle on either side, and I can have the pin come straight up through the center of that. That will work. I won't be tightening the nut all the way down and deforming the body completely, but at least it will have, deformation to either side. So I could conceivably trim the edges a little bit on the mount, and at least get it so that it's not going to be such a big problem. I might also just use some nylon lock nuts, like flanged lock nuts, and like wheel nuts, instead of this big thing. Now, yes, this I can do by hand. The flange nuts, I would need to use a tool like this, but that might be a small price to pay for totally screwing up the body. I mean, it would be... The only other thing I could do would be to try to mount this bracket further rearward, and I would literally need to come back almost to here where where it's narrow enough to the point where you actually get to flat surface with this width or this width. And that's, I mean, even if I was using the widest piece, which is the TLR one, the original piece, I would need to come back. Let's see, let me get this exactly in the center. Okay, so that is center of where I want it. So I would need to come back to here, at least, if not to somewhere around here. This is where it starts getting flat, but your one edge is starting to come up. Really, it would need to come back to like here, and that's just too far to build a bracket that's hanging off the body. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it's hanging off the shock tower. The shock tower is more than strong enough to handle it. It's just kind of weird having this big bracket hanging off the back when I could just, you know, drill through right here at the crease. So that's what I'm going to end up doing. So before I mark this up and auger holes, now that I at least know things are going to work, I'm going to take the body, lift the body away. I'm going to take off the twisty ties. I'm going to mark out center and measure my hole distance from center. I'm going to drill the holes and get some hardware going so that this bar and this bar are both mounted. So they're not going to, I know that they are in permanent position. And then I'll hang the body over it again, and I'll use this pen to mark those center points where I'm going to drill a hole. I highly recommend this product right here. It's a pen made by Biddy Design. You can find it on A-Main Hobbies. You can go to Biddy Design's website. They make some nice car bodies. This is a permanent marker for marking on Lexan and stuff like that. This thing makes a Sharpie look like an erasable. It's amazing. I've written on things like plastic bags and stuff that a Sharpie would normally just rub off. The plastic coating on top of these bodies, the peel away protection, Lexan itself, plastic bags, cellophane tape, you name it. If Sharpie won't write on it, this will. It's amazing, and I find it really handy. I don't keep any Sharpies with me in the toolbox usually anymore because I mean, they only offer it in black, so if I want red, I throw a red Sharpie in, whatever. But this is the thing I reach for when I want to make a mark on something and I want to make sure it's there later. So I'm gonna pull the body off and go through here. I just kind of wanted to show you some step-by-step on how to do, how to put a body on a car that isn't made for it, and how to kind of, figure things out, make things work, cannibalize parts, etc. I mean, this whole project is just one big Franken-car of bits and pieces, but it's doing really well, and I'm really happy with the way it's going. So, like I said, I'm going to measure and drill and bolt, measure, drill, and bolt, and then I can hang the body again, mark, and start making holes. So, I was having trouble kind of reading the lay of the land here because there's so many angles, and because we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 more over here, and they, they're not parallel, they converge at different, directions, and then there's also, how the light reflects and where I'm standing, and it was getting really hard to kind of figure out what was what. So I I took a flexible straight edge, laid it down, and marked along this this particular fold line, and you can see I missed it one time right there. This is the actual line that I need to follow, and I also marked out center here just to have another point of reference. So now I can figure out exactly where I want my front tires. The rear tires kind of come along for the ride because they're, you know, they don't steer, so they're not as important, you know, as when it comes to positioning, as long as they are, you know, centered. So now what I'm looking for is the actual spot that I'm gonna make the hole. So I'm gonna do the rear one first, and then I'll hang the body over those pins and then mark the front, because the front's going to get a little bit of a lift as well. These are going to rise a bit to give ground clearance, so that will make a little more space because of the way the hood scoop has a bit of an angle to it on either side. So as you can see, I've now drilled the front holes, and well, I didn't drill them, I used a body reamer. It's what you should always use. And I've just used some just flanged nuts for this, and works great. It's not as imposing as a couple of these big things, so that's what I'm probably going to end up using. So now I have to do the height, and that's just a matter of deciding how far up these body posts need to go, how many, because there's a line of holes in them, so I want to get the right body height. And for the front, it's probably just going to be 1, and the rear is probably going to be the same, maybe 2 holes up, because I want to make sure that the rear has enough room to, you know, sink down the suspension under power, and then room for the tires to expand. So I do want to keep the front end as low as possible, because I want the aerodynamic advantage. At the same time, I want to be able to have enough clearance so that it isn't rubbing on the ground every time the car gets a little bit of front end wheelie and hits back down again. Now, I've helped mitigate that with a very stiff front end suspension, but still, I need to have some lift in the front. So I'm going to start with 1 hole up and see how it looks from there. And this is kind of a trial and error process, just like the general fitting is. This whole thing is a custom process that you've got to go through a little bit at a time. And the more time you take, the better result you're going to get. You're going to have a more properly fitted body, front and rear, your wheelbase fitting correctly, because not all short course trucks give you the wheelbase that the bodies are cut for. In fact, I did make these rear fenders a little more, if you can see, I kind of ignored the body line a little bit and cut the arch a little off, a little more forward. And even then, the front of the tire is still a little bit hidden. The rear is a little bit open, whereas the front end is pretty squared. I generally tend to line up that front tire first with the body. Also, the width of this played a role. I could only slide the fuselage so far forward without both of these brackets here contacting. this hump. I could only narrow this so much by trimming the edges off, which I did, but at some point you run into it. Also, there's a little bit of a deflection. I'm not sure if the body was misformed. I know I measured all of these holes correctly up here, so this is centered on the chassis, but the body may have had a little warp to it. So, you know, it is a hot pressed item, and there can be a certain amount of tolerance. In any event, there was only so far I could move the body in the forward direction before the tapering of this hood scoop area here impacted upon the upward supports here. So you have to work within the realm of what's possible. So I'm going to make the height adjustments and move forward from there. But I'm almost at the point where I'm going to be masking and painting. Okay, one level up in the front gives me a decent amount of clearance, about, I can get my fingertip under there, not quite a ½ inch, I would say 3/16. The front end, if it compresses enough, it will touch down, but that's a lot of suspension movement to go. It's actually just about hitting the stops as it touches down, so I think I'll be okay there. I can always add a little preload. There's no droop in the suspension up front. The rear has an acceptable amount of droop, depending on the weight. If you just let it sit, it's got about a ½ inch droop, and even with it totally bottomed out on the suspension, there's still a good ½ inch or more between the body and the tires, which gives the tires room to expand under centrifugal force. So the rear came up 1.5 notches because it's already got a ½ notch already, so basically 1, and that should do it. I've got the crossbar right here going left to right. And it's just above the when I actually put the bolts in, which I haven't, it should be touching the back of the wheelie bar here, which will prevent the arms from flexing and compressing the body further. So that should make it really stable. You know, the larger the body, the more influence it potentially has, the more the mounts need to be stiff and strong. So everything looks good. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. And I should be able to take the original body that I had set up for this car and drill new holes for it, and I may need to make adjustments in the heights of these for that car, but I should be able to come up with a configuration that will work for both bodies, or 2 configurations, 1 for each body. In other words, these are the heights I need for this body, and with the other body I may need to raise this or raise the front, or both, to provide clearance. It is a higher body in the rear, I believe, so we'll see how that goes. I'll do some testing, but this is the body I'd prefer to run anyway, because of the sloping nose. Gives a little more downforce. You are trying to keep the front end on the ground after all, and so now I need to work on bumper fitment, because I'm going to be reinstalling the bumper that I had come up with for this kit, and basically it's cobbled together from other vehicles' parts. This is a TLR part for a different type of bumper, and I forget where I got this. I think this is a generic piece, or it might have been a slash piece. And then this bumper is for a large road car. I forget which offhand. In any event, it worked great with the other body. I'm going to need to narrow it up a little bit at the edges here, but I should be able to make it work for this body as well. And having that air gap between the nose and the chassis closed should also help keep the front end on the ground when the front end starts to rise on as it wheelies off the line. The front end's going to want to drop down. It's not going to want to parachute and balloon as much. So especially with all the cutaway back here, the air flows out the back of this body really nicely. In fact, there's far more open space back here than there is up front, so less likely to get any type of parachuting effect or ballooning effect. So I'm going to take the body off. I'm going to tighten all these attachment points here for these posts, and then I'm going to put the bumper back on. Okay, I've trimmed the bumper. An excellent way to trim these hard foam rubber bumpers is to use a razor saw. You can hold it down flat against a hard surface and shape it quite nicely. Now, because of the point at the front of this body, there is an air gap right in the very front. Let's see if I can show this to you. Okay. So this area right in here provides a gap that air can get in and start ballooning the, or it doesn't actually balloon it. It's just a problem. You get a better aerodynamic airflow if there isn't a gap, if the bumper seals the front of the body. So what I'm going to do is I have a product made by Sweep, and it's about 1 inch tall strips of foam that are about an 1/8 inch thick, and they've got a like a sticky side, two-sided tape set up on them. And so instead of sticking it to the bumper itself and building up the bumper, which is one way to do it, I want to keep as close to the original shape because I want this bumper to be usable with the other body. So what I'm going to do is, when I've painted the body, I will add strips to the front of the body itself between the body and the bumper to fill that space. And then when I set the other body up, if any of the material I've cut off at the corner has left an air gap, I'll do the same thing on that body and fill in what the small amount of material that I cut off at the corners here. That way I can use this same bumper with both bodies. Both bodies will be customized to fit the one bumper. So that's how I'm going to do that. So everything is set now. The body is ready to be masked and painted, and that's a whole process unto itself. So this is where I leave off on the Street Eliminator drag car videos for the moment. Next video will be testing this, just to kind of recap what's been done since the first iteration. I've put in a locking diff here, so that's not on tight for some reason. Okay, I'll work that out. In any event, this has a locker now, so one tire is going to turn exactly as much as the other and vice versa. There's no slippage between the two. It's like having a solid axle, even though I've got the dog bones, and that's for suspension and flexibility. Otherwise you could have a solid rear axle, but these cars don't lend themselves to that. I don't think that there is a way to build a solid axle suspension onto a short course truck and still keep it legal for the class. So enough on that. New body mounts. There's going to be a new speed controller coming in later this week, and that is a 1/8 scale speed control, so that will be able to handle this race motor, and so everything else is done. Well, here's the finished paint job with all the decals. I thought you might enjoy seeing it from a couple of different angles. I'll try to have some race footage for you in an upcoming video. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like. Please subscribe to my channel. If you click the little bell icon, you'll get notifications every time I bring out a new video. I'm always doing one kind of project or another. My RC hobby involves cars and airplanes for the most part, powered planes and gliders. So please check back frequently, and thank you for watching.